Have you ever met someone who changed your life? Not through words, but through a single quiet act of kindness? Sometimes, it's not the loudest voices that leave the deepest marks. Sometimes, it's the people who speak through silence who remind us what humanity truly means. Inside the grand halls of the Aurelia Grand Hotel, where marble floors whispered wealth and chandeliers glimmered like captured stars, a story began. One that would travel far beyond those golden walls and touch millions of hearts. And at the center of it was a shy young waitress named Clara Doran. Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming stories here on Stories by BB. Clara had been working at the Aurelia Grand Hotel for barely 2 weeks. Each morning, she pressed her uniform with trembling hands, tied her hair neatly, and whispered a silent prayer that she wouldn't make a mistake. She came from a small, quiet town where dreams rarely reached beyond the horizon. Her father had walked out when she was 12, leaving her mother to work endless hours to keep food on the table. But what truly defined Clara's heart wasn't her struggles. It was her love for her younger brother, Liam, who was born deaf. When most children were learning to shout their wishes into the world, Clara was learning how to speak without sound. She practiced sign language late into the night, tracing every gesture until her hands could say what her lips could not. Those silent words became their bond, a language of laughter and love. But 2 years ago, that silence grew heavier. Liam passed away after a long illness, and Clara's world dimmed. The language that once connected her to her brother now felt like a haunting echo, a reminder of everything she had lost. That afternoon at the Aurelia Grand Hotel, sunlight spilled through the high glass windows, reflecting off crystal tableware. The staff moved briskly, serving guests draped in luxury. Clara's name appeared next to Table 9, a private setting reserved for Nathan Hale, a billionaire with a reputation for being brilliant but distant, and his mother, Evelyn Hale, a woman known for her poise and quiet grace. Clara's stomach fluttered. She knew their table had to be perfect. As she approached, something about Evelyn caught her attention. The older woman wasn't responding to the waiter's polite questions. Instead, she smiled softly, reading his lips with effort. Then Clara noticed the small hearing aid behind her ear. Nathan leaned closer, speaking slowly so his mother could understand. Clara froze. She knew that look, the gentle patience, the rhythm of someone bridging two worlds, one filled with sound and one wrapped in silence. For a moment, she hesitated. It wasn't her place to say anything. But then, something deep inside her, a quiet courage born from love and loss, urged her to move. She steadied her breath, then lifted her hands and began to sign, "Would you like still or sparkling water?" The entire dining hall seemed to pause. Evelyn's eyes widened. Her hand lifted to her chest as emotion flooded her face. Then, slowly, she smiled, truly smiled, and signed back. "You know sign language?" Clara nodded, her eyes soft, her heart racing. Nathan looked up, stunned. For years, he had watched people treat his mother with awkward politeness, never with understanding. Waiters would nod impatiently, strangers would pity her, and every meal out was a quiet battle against loneliness. But this was different. Across the pristine tablecloth, his mother was laughing like she hadn't in years. Clara continued serving, her hands moving gracefully through conversation. Evelyn's eyes sparkled as they signed small jokes back and forth. The other guests began to notice. Whispers rippled across the hall. But Nathan didn't care. For once, he wasn't thinking about meetings, markets, or mergers. He was watching something priceless. His mother being seen. And for Clara, it wasn't just kindness. Every gesture carried memory of Liam, of the nights they laughed in their own silent world. Through Evelyn, she felt as if she was speaking to her brother one last time. The ache in her chest softened with each word she signed. After the meal, Evelyn insisted on meeting Clara properly. She clasped the young woman's hands tightly, tears shimmering in her eyes, and signed, "You made me feel seen. You reminded me I'm not alone." Clara's lips trembled as she signed back, "You reminded me love never disappears." Nathan stood nearby, silent, taking in the moment. Later, he called Clara aside. She braced herself for a reprimand. Maybe she had overstepped. But instead, his tone was different, almost unsure. He thanked her. He told her how his mother had felt isolated for years, even in her own home, and how no one had ever cared enough to communicate with her like this. He said softly, "You reminded me what empathy looks like. I'd forgotten." A few days later, without her knowing, Nathan arranged for the Aurelia Grand Hotel to offer free sign language lessons to all its staff in memory of Liam Doran. And soon after, he offered Clara a scholarship to study special education, saying, "The world needs more people like you, those who can speak to hearts even without words." Word of what happened spread quickly. Guests shared the story online, calling it the day kindness spoke in silence. And in a world that often feels too loud, that story became a gentle reminder that compassion doesn't need sound to be heard. Weeks later, Clara stood by the tall hotel window as the sun dipped below the skyline. She whispered a quiet thank you to Liam, to Evelyn, and to the world that still held kindness. Sometimes life tests us with silence, but love always finds a way back, often through strangers who need it just as much as we do. Tell me, if you were in Clara Doran's place, would you have done what she did? Would you have reached out in a world that often turns away? If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Stories by BB, because the world needs more stories that remind us that even in silence, love still speaks.